Okay, the last loop that I would like to talk about is the for loop, all right? Python handles the for loop just a little differently than anybody else does. Let's look at example 5.10, okay? And you'll see that it says for, we have some kind of a counter, count is equal to 1, semicolon. The condition is going to be count is less than or equal to 4, semicolon, and then it's going to be count plus plus. The for loop is probably the hardest one to turn into real Python code from pseudocode, because the pseudocode that is given is very, very similar to the real code of most other languages. Python just handles things a little differently. All right, so how do we figure that out? How do we know how that that loop is handled? So once again, I enter Python for loop into Google and I start doing a search. Okay, and I found that probably this link here might be one of the best ones. Non-programmer's tutorial for Python 3 for loops. That looks pretty good, because if we go up here, we look at a wiki is going to be kind of a dictionary or an encyclopedia, and you might not be able to make sense of it. All right, I don't want to look for flow control loops in Python 2. The Python for loops statement, this was pretty cool actually, so let's go over here, and it says for iterating variable in sequence. That literally is exactly how the Python loop or the for loop works. And what is an iterating variable? It is something that's going to hold a temporary piece of information. What is a sequence? It is something that could be like a sequence of characters, for example. Here they used for letter in Python. So letter is a variable that is going to hold one instance of any one of these characters as it works its way through the loop. Fact is, I think what I'll do is I'll go ahead and cut that or copy it, and I'll paste it in here. And I see right away that I have a syntax error, so let's go ahead and fix that. Okay, because this is a Python 2.7 code here. So let's save that and let's run it. Okay, run the module. And it comes back and it says Python. Now some of you guys are looking at that going, wow, that was really cool. Totally understand what's going on. Most of you are probably saying, gosh, Dave, that was really exciting, but I don't understand how that's going to help me with like maybe numbers or something along those lines. Well, what I'll do is I'll come back here again to my search then, and I'll do a little more searching. We'll come back here. Since that was a little confusing, we work our way down here and we say, hey, non-programmers, I should be in really great shape. So I'll click on that and let's see what it says. Okay, here is a new typing exercise for this chapter. All right, so there's the exercise. It's going to go 1 to 10 in the range of 1 to 11. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, for count in operation, or 1 to 10. So look what's happened here. Let me move this out of the way. I had for letter in Python. Here I have for count in 1 to 10. 1 to 10 literally is a variable that is holding a range of numbers from 1 to 10, because we used the range command to create this. All right, and I realize that this is one really convoluted way of doing a for loop, but this is the only way that Python will do it. All right, so let's just grab a hold of this little piece of code here. I copied it. We'll come over here, Control V. I run the handy dandy paste, save it, and we'll run the module, and it comes back, and sure enough it went from 1 through 10. Now this is really, really cool. Okay, and the reason that I say that this is really, really cool is because with the while loop, when we had the with the precondition, we were able to decrement a count. Well, now with the for loop, we can increment a count. Okay, well, I think what I'll do now is I'll just grab a hold of range right here like this, and I'll copy that, and actually put that here. So now I have put, if you will, I have put my counter right here. This in a sense is saying, remember our little our count when we did the for loop, we said count is equal to 1. Well, this is exactly the same thing as saying count is equal to 1. So there's my variables count, it's equal to 1. And then we have count is less than or equal to 4. Well, there isn't a less than or equal to 4, okay, but there is a less than. So in this case, I'm saying the count is less than 11. So if I wanted to make it less than or equal to 4, as in the example of the book, I would actually put the number 5 here, all right? So let's save this and let's run it. Run the module and see it went 1, 2, 3, 4, all right? So that part worked pretty good. But what if I want to go backwards? What if I want to go backwards? Well, what I do is I take advantage of what is known as a step. And before I go backwards, let's do this. I'll go, say, comma, 2. I'll say I'm going to step 2. All right, and what exactly is that going to accomplish? So we'll come down here, we'll run the module, and it says 1, 3. So in other words, what it did was it picked, starting with 1, it went ahead and it skipped the next one, and then it printed the next one, skipped the next one, printed the next one. In other words, it stepped 2, okay? Hope that makes sense to you guys. Well, let's go ahead and say, well, that'll work. Let's just use a -1, okay? So that we can step it backwards. And I'll run my module, and it didn't do anything. Well, 1 step backwards is 0, so we're out of the range, so it knows to stop. That means basically I need to change the 5 to there and the 1 to there, okay? Pick save, we're going to go ahead and run it. And there you are, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So now we've created the preconditioned while loop counter that we had earlier, except that we were dealing with larger numbers, I think, in that previous example. So we're able to go forward, we're able to go backwards. This is how the for loop actually works in Python. In most cases, you're going to put a 1 here, and you're going to put a 5 or whatever here. And you're probably not even going to use step, but I'm going to leave it there. And the reason that I'm going to leave it there is to help remind you of the fact that there is a variable here that Python will accept that will cause us to step in the right direction, all right? Or work our way through this range of numbers in the right direction. So let's come down here, we'll run the module to make sure it works, and sure enough it does. So now what I want to do is I want to say, well, what is the sum of those first numbers, all right? So up here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say number, or answer, ANS, is equal to 0, okay? And now, here, what I'll do is grab this and I'll say sum plus equals, actually not sum, I'll say answer, plus equals count, okay? And then down here I'll do print open parenthesis answer close parenthesis, or close quote, comma, ANS, close parenthesis, and let's go ahead and run it. All right, come down here, run the module, save it. And it comes back here and says that the answer is 10. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Sure enough, that worked. Now if I want to, I can take the summation of any number n down to its root, if you will. So I can have the number, say, the number of 10, and I can just keep summing it until I get whatever, you know, whatever the answer might be. So if I'm curious, I can either type it here, right? Put in the number of 10 like so, and then run it, and it tells me that the answer is going to be 45, or if I want to, I can use my handy dandy input, right? So let's go ahead and say Command C, because I already have this code elsewhere from a previous lesson, input a number, right? And there that is, my number. Control C, in the range of 1 to Control V, number, like that. Does that make sense to everybody, I hope? So now that I've done that, let's run it and see if it actually works, okay? So it says enter a number, and I'm going to use 10 because I know what the answer to 10 is. Hit enter, and the answer is 45. So now I've found a way to sum a whole bunch of numbers together. I can put in a pretty big value in there. For example, let's go ahead and run it again. It says enter a number, and I'm just going to go 1. There, it looks like a pretty fun number, right? So I hit enter, and it comes back and says, there's my answer, 1, 2, 6, 3, etc. Okay, so that's a big number. That's a really big number. So that should, I hope, help you with respect to the for loop in Python. And you know, once again, I want to point out the for loops in Python are not as easy as while loops. And you're going to find that a lot of people, when they're writing code in Python, they actually don't use the for loop unless they are going through something that already exists. You know, a range of numbers. Let's see. See if I can't come up with an example here. Let me pause this. Actually, rather than pausing while I work this out, let me just do it here. I'm going to say number. I'm going to say number is equal to range. Remember, we did the range thing to begin with, right? Number is equal to range, open parenthesis, 1 comma 10, like so. And I'll hit enter, and it doesn't do anything, which is what I would expect because it assigned it to number. So now if I do number, N-U-M-B-E-R, it says that it's a range of 1 to 10. Now, isn't that interesting? Alrighty, well, I want to see what's in that range. I want to see what, you know, number is a range of 1 to 10, so let's list the range. Okay, let's go ahead and we're going to use a thing called list. This will allow me to look inside of range 1 to 10, list, range, if you will. It's a little, let's see, go back here, 1 comma 10, like so. And let's see what that ends up doing, okay? Close that parenthesis, hit enter, and there we are. So we have a range of values starting with 1 and going all the way through 9, okay? So that's literally what's happening when we come up here. It creates a range of values just like the you know, Python, okay? This would be really, well, no, I'm not going to even go down that road. I was going to do another experiment, but we don't really have time for that. But at any rate, it's going to go through this range. And the way that it did it, pulled it off, was down here as it created one of these things. It created, if you will, an array of numbers, starting from 1 all the way through 9. And then it looked inside the array of numbers. That's literally what's happening here. It's looking inside that list of numbers, okay? And then it took one of the numbers and it stuck it into this variable called count. And then it went ahead and it added it to the answer. Once it had completed that, it knew that it needs to get the next number. So it grabbed 1, it knew to get the next number, and so on and so forth until it finally got all of them. All right? You can get on the web and look a little bit more, or look up a little bit more about ranges and a little bit more about the for loop if you wish. But here at least is the mechanics on how to pull this thing off.